Hi, we're covering the rideshare industry. We're looking at the efficiency and equity of what's going on in ride sharing right now. So, ride sharing is part of the larger sharing economy, and it really started blowing up around people getting cheap smartphones and reliable GPS. And it really started up around the early 2010s. In 2013 was Uber's official launch. It only had 1,000 new drivers, and now Uber has about 7.8 million drivers. Currently, there are 156 million people using Uber in 2024, and 95 million of those use Uber Eats. Frequent rideshare users are less likely to own a car and rely more on public transportation. Currently, Uber has a 156 billion US dollar market cap. So just looking at some consumer surplus and other stats. So consumer surplus is basically the amount of value a consumer gets. So for each dollar spent by consumers, they get about $1.60 of consumer surplus. This was in 2015, and that was the last official report. So it probably would have been changed, but consumers have gotten quite a bit of value from using Uber. Extrapolated, it was around 7 billion in consumer surplus. Also, just looking at efficiency, studies noted that Uber drivers were 50% more efficient than taxis. And because it was requested through an app, there was less time spent idle, and this put competitive pressures on taxis.
Due to their on-demand services in mostly cities and airports, it has made a lot of traditional taxi services less desirable for many travelers. For many urban areas, this means that the increase of ride-sharing services has obviously led to the reduction of taxi services and has only further displaced the issue of public transportation onto ride-sharing services rather than solving the issue of moving many groups of people at once. Purported estimates from Cramer and Judd's study do not confirm whether wages from either service will increase with the rider capacity rate of 62.4%. The emissions caused by many of these ride-sharing services has rapidly increased. As the service being so on demand, it means that drivers must idle around their area of service waiting for potential customers. This, of course, leads to a lot of what is referred to as deadheading, where a lot of extra pollution is generated per rider capacity that is not being currently occupied. And unlike current public transportation methods, such as buses, trains, or trams, ride-sharing and taxi services tend to expel about 400 grams of carbon dioxide emissions per mile when carrying more than one rider.
There are ethical concerns in ride-sharing. First of which would be surge pricing ethics, how surge pricing affects customers, especially during emergencies. And surge pricing is kind of a dynamic pricing model that increases fares based off of demand. It can be beneficial for incentivizing drivers to be available, but it can also lead to ethical concerns, such as during emergencies, like natural disasters, mass evacuations. The surge pricing can make rides unaffordable for those in need. And some cases have even sparked public backlash, such as price hikes during hurricanes or terror attacks. There is also issues with driver treatment and earnings. Rideshare drivers operate as independent contractors rather than employees, which ultimately means that they lack job security and minimum wage guarantees. They also lack benefits like health insurance or paid time off. And there is also the issue with user safety and safety concerns, where ride-sharing platforms have introduced safety measures such as background checks and in-app emergency buttons. And even though all of these are implemented in place, there are still reported incidents of harassment, assault, and fraudulent rides, which ultimately leads to the concern about the rider and driver safety.